July 16, 1973. The lobby of the DuPont Plaza Hotel, Miami. The air isn't just warm, it's a thick, perfumed syrup of cigar smoke, expensive cologne, and the faint salt tang of Biscayne Bay wafting through the revolving doors. You hear the clink of ice in highball glasses long before you see them, the low murmur of conversations in Spanish and English, a currency exchange as constant as the hum of the wall-mounted air conditioners. A young man barely out of his teens in a crisp chauffeur's uniform 2 sizes too large shifts his weight from one polished shoe to the other. He's not looking at the gold leaf ceiling or the sparkling chandelier. His eyes are locked on a simple, heavy door of dark cypress wood, marked only with a brass number, 419. In his hands, he doesn't hold car keys. He grips the handle of a slender, brown leather briefcase. It is unremarkable save for its weight and its twin brass clasps. Inside, there is no paperwork, no business proposal. It is packed with neat brick-like precision with US $100 bills. $250,000 in cash. This is not his money. He is a courier, a tiny, nervous gear in a vast and quiet financial machine. The money belongs to the man behind door 419, a guest who has taken the entire floor. Pedro Perez, a name that meant nothing in Miami society pages and everything in the whispered networks of Venezuelan commerce. The door opens, not Perez but a serious-faced aide with watchful eyes. A nod. No words. The briefcase changes hands. The door closes. The transaction takes less than 10 seconds. Outside, gleaming on the hotel's driveway, sits the reason for the courier's journey, a brand new fire-engine red Ferrari 365 GTB4 Daytona. The title is in the briefcase. The payment is now in the room. The car, a roaring symbol of impossible wealth, will be driven onto a cargo ship bound for Caracas by the end of the week. This is not an isolated incident. It is a ritual. Every week, a different luxury car. A Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, a Mercedes-Benz 450 SL, a Lincoln Continental. Every week, a briefcase. Every week, room 419 or one like it in the Fontainebleau, the Doral, the Seville. This is the dawn of the Dame Dues era. The phrase, Spanish forgive me too, became the legendary punchline of 1,000 true stories. A Venezuelan buyer walks into a Miami Cadillac dealership, points to a glossy El Dorado. Cuanto. The salesman gives the price. The buyer doesn't blink. He simply holds up 2 fingers. Dame Dues. Give me 2, one for him, one for his wife. No haggling, cash. The economic phenomenon fueling this staggering display has its roots 2,000 miles away under the placid waters of Lake Maracaibo. In December 1973, OPEC, led by its Arab members, embargoed oil shipments to the United States for its support of Israel in the Yom Kippur War. Prices quadrupled. But Venezuela, already a major oil producer and crucially not part of the Arab embargo, found itself in a golden vice. It could sell its oil at these new, sky-high prices and keep its most lucrative market wide open, the United States. Money began to gush into Caracas not like a river, but like a flash flood. And a significant portion of that black gold tsunami needed a place to go. It needed a sanctuary that was stable, sunny, close, and spoke the language. Look north, just a 3-hour flight over the Caribbean. It looked to a sleepy, sun-bleached city still dreaming of its Art Deco past, a city about to be transformed, one briefcase and one Dame Dues at a time. The flight of the Petrodollars, October 1974. Aboard a Venezuelan International Boeing 727 cruising at 35,000 feet over the Caribbean. The cabin vibrates with a low, steady roar, but it's not just the Pratt and Whitney engines. It's the energy of 50 passengers who are not tourists. They're a cross-section of a nation suddenly rich. The Nuevo Rico businessman in a white linen suit, his gold Rolex president catching the sun through the oval window. The well-connected empleado publico, public employee with government procurement contracts in his briefcase. The elegant matron from Altamira, her pearls real, her plans for shopping at Berdine's already detailed on a notepad. Below the sea is an endless sheet of turquoise and deep blue. Ahead lies the flat, emerald and sapphire coastline of South Florida. For them, Miami isn't America. It es la provincia venezolana del norte, the northern Venezuelan province. The jet banks beginning its descent. In the aisle a man stands stretching. He is Alfredo, a mid-level manager for a Caracas construction firm. In his jacket pocket is a checkbook from Banco Metropolitano de Caracas. His instructions from his boss, a man newly enriched by government infrastructure contracts, were simple. Find a condominium, something on the water, something with a good address, buy it. Not rent, buy the purpose. A pieza de seguridad, a safety piece. A tangible, stable asset parked in a stable country, far from the political oscillations and capital controls that always seem to whisper on the edges of Venezuelan prosperity. For others, the purpose was simpler: pleasure. A weekend bolt hole for shopping and discotheques, a place to park a mistress, a summer home for children attending American schools. As the wheels of the 727 screech onto the tarmac at Miami International, the floodgates open physically. The arrivals terminal, Gate 5, becomes a familiar chaos. Well-dressed families cluster around mountains of Louis Vuitton luggage. The air fills with rapid-fire Spanish, the snapping of fingers for porters, the rustle of documents. They are met not by relatives, but by a new breed of entrepreneur, the bilingual Miami real estate agent. Sharp-eyed, fluent in the language of commission, they hold signs not for Smith or Johnson, but for Gonzalez and Lopez. They carry listings not for modest homes in Kendall, but for sprawling waterfront properties on Hibiscus Island, Bay Point, or the new, soaring condominium towers just beginning to claw at the skyline of Brickell Avenue. The money they bring doesn't just buy property, it ignites an entire parallel economy. At the Mutiny at Sailboat Bay, the infamous Coconut Grove private club, the Maître d' knows to keep a prime table for Senor Perez. The waitresses learn the difference between a Punta Cana and a Cuba Libre. The orders are for Dom Perignon, not Budweiser. Down on Flagler Street, jewelry store owners, once catering to retirees buying anniversary bands, suddenly stock up on Rolex Daytonas, diamond tennis bracelets, and heavy gold cadenas chains for men. The cars, as witnessed in the hotel lobbies, are just the rolling advertisements. The real investment is in concrete, glass, and dirt. Local developers, many of them Jewish or Anglo, initially baffled by the sheer velocity of these cash deals, quickly adapt. They learn to hire Venezuelan attorneys on retainer. They adjust their blueprints. Kitchens become larger for entertaining, balconies become wraparound for viewing the water. The names of new buildings shift from Anglo-solid, the Westminster, to cosmopolitan aspirational, the Imperial at Bay Point, the Palace. The money isn't just spending. It's instructing, reshaping the very fabric of the city's aspirations. Brickell begins its metamorphosis from a sleepy boulevard of old money homes into the Manhattan of the South. Its first skyscrapers financed not by Wall Street, but by petrodollars fleeing a different kind of jungle. But this is just the beginning. This influx of capital and people is about to collide with a perfect storm of geopolitics, creating a point of no return for Miami. The perfect storm: Castro, cocaine, and capital. December 8, 1979. Dinner service at the Forge Restaurant, Miami Beach. Steam rises from a plate of Chateaubriand for two. The air in the Forge's legendary wood-paneled dining room is heavy with the scent of charred prime rib and the fragrant haze of Partagaz cigars. At a corner banquette, three men are in deep conversation. One is a Venezuelan industrialist. Another is a Miami-based banker with a newly opened international private banking division. The third is a Cuban-American real estate developer who arrived on a freedom flight in 1966. Their conversation is a low hum of finance and fear. The fear has a new name: Fidel Castro. Venezuela, long a regional rival and a fervent anti-communist democracy, watches with alarm as Castro's Soviet-backed regime not only consolidates, but begins to export revolution. Leftist guerrillas, some trained in Havana, are active in the Venezuelan hinterlands. For the wealthy Venezuelan at the table, Castro is no longer a distant Caribbean problem. He is an existential threat to his world. The safety piece mentality now escalates into a full-blown capital flight. It's no longer just about buying a nice condo. It's about moving liquid assets, whole companies, and family legacies out of reach of a potential socialist tide. The banker nods, speaking of secure vaults, numbered accounts, and discreet wealth management. The developer slides a glossy brochure for a new, gated community in Coral Gables across the tablecloth. This geopolitical push factor meets a powerful American pull factor almost simultaneously. In Washington, a new Federal Reserve Chairman, Paul Volcker, declares war on the runaway inflation plaguing the U.S. economy. His weapon: astronomically high interest rates. By 1981, the prime lending rate will soar past 20%. For Venezuelans, this is a siren song. Parking money in a Miami bank account or a U.S. Treasury bill doesn't just keep it safe from Castro, it earns a staggering, risk-free return unimaginable back home. The flood of petrodollars becomes a tsunami. And into this volatile mix of fear and finance, a third, darker current begins to flow: cocaine. The emerging Medellin and Cali cartels, generating billions in U.S. currency, face the same problem as the Venezuelan elite: how to repatriate and launder monumental sums of cash. Miami, with its already frenetic international banking scene, its porous financial controls, and its massive construction industry hungry for investment, is the perfect laundromat. Colombian narcos and Venezuelan oligarchs, though from different worlds, begin to use the same tools: shell companies, over-invoiced real estate deals, and briefcases of cash. The city physically convulses under this triple injection of capital. Construction cranes become the unofficial bird of Miami. The skyline of Brickell explodes vertically. On the waterfront, the foundation is poured for the Imperial at College Point, a condominium whose sales are conducted almost entirely in Caracas and Maracaibo living rooms. But the money also flows into more visceral ventures. On South Beach, a young entrepreneur named Tony Goldman begins buying up derelict Art Deco hotels for a pittance, his vision funded in part by international capital seeking a toehold. The money isn't just building office towers, it's accidentally preserving an architectural heritage that would have otherwise been bulldozed. The Dame Dues culture evolves. It's no longer just two Cadillacs. It's two condos, one to live in, one as an investment. It's two safety deposit boxes, one in a Miami bank, one in a Grand Cayman bank. The city sheds its retirement village skin and becomes a glistening, chaotic international boomtown. But a boom built on such volatile foundations, geopolitical panic, monetary policy, and drug money, cannot sustain its frantic pace without consequence. The glittering facade is about to develop cracks. Crackling facade: the downside of Dame Dues, September 21, 1982. The grand opening sales gallery for the Towers of Quayside, Brickell. A string quartet plays Vivaldi under the sterile glow of track lighting. Models of two gleaming, 40-story towers rest on plexiglass stands, surrounded by renderings of a marina filled with yachts. Well-dressed sales associates circulate with trays of champagne flutes. The crowd is a mix: the expected Venezuelan buyers in Guayaberas, but also local attorneys and a few curious, wealthy snowbirds. The lead developer, a man named Robert Cram, adjusts his tie, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. He is trying to project an aura of unstoppable success, but he is thinking about a phone call he received that morning. A call from a Panamanian holding company representing a major Venezuelan investor. The message was brief: the Quayside commitment is on hold, indefinitely. Half a world away, the engine of the Dame Dues era has sputtered. The Latin American debt crisis has exploded. Mexico defaults. The shockwave ripples across the continent. Venezuela, despite its oil, is drowning in foreign debt it cannot service. The bolivar, once rock solid, begins a sickening plunge. In Caracas, the government imposes strict currency controls. The free flow of petrodollars that Miami's economy had come to depend on is suddenly, violently choked off. The private flight of capital becomes a public crisis back home. For the Venezuelan elite, the Miami safety piece is no longer a luxury, it's a lifeline. But the funds to maintain it are trapped behind bureaucratic walls in Venezuela. The first and most visible casualty is the real estate market. For sale signs, a rarity during the boom, begin to sprout like weeds in front of luxury condos. Not from small owners, but from developers. Pre-construction projects like Quayside stall, their sales targets evaporating overnight. Half-finished skeletons of buildings, like the one Biscayne Tower, stand as silent, rusting monuments to stalled ambition. The Miami Herald begins running stories with headlines like "The Venezuelan Pullout" and "Magic City Mirage." Restaurant owners from Coral Gables to Key Biscayne note the absence of familiar faces. The lavish, weekly Friday night parties thrown by Venezuelan expats grow fewer and farther between. But the Venezuelan retreat exposes a more sinister foundation that had been laid beneath the boom. With legitimate capital fleeing, the vacuum in the high-rolling economy is filled by the only players left with unimaginable liquidity: the narco-traffickers. The cocaine cowboys who had been operating in parallel now step into the spotlight. They buy the stalled condos with duffel bags of cash. They snap up the failed nightclubs and restaurants. The aesthetic of Miami shifts from the flashy, open-handed wealth of the Venezuelan playboy to something darker, more dangerous. Gold chains become thicker. Silk shirts open one more button. Bulletproof Chevy Suburbans appear on the streets. The violence, once contained in distant drug deals, erupts in shopping mall parking lots and on the causeways in spectacular daytime shootouts. The city finds itself in a paradoxical hangover. It is physically transformed, gleaming, modern, international, but the economic engine that built it is broken, and a criminal element has seized the levers of its nightlife and much of its luxury market. The Dame Dues era is over. The phrase is now uttered with a note of nostalgia and a tinge of irony for the naive extravagance of it all. The party has ended, but Miami is left standing in a magnificently built, dangerously charged new city, forever altered by the decade-long flood of oil money. It must now learn to live with the legacy, both glittering and tarnished, that the petrodollars built.